All right, we are back here with Tom Stollings, part 2. Last week we left off learning about his really quite brutal, somewhat adventurous childhood as he grew up into his teens, military, things like that. And Tom told us that he married an LDS girl after he joined the church because of her, and they were very active, faithful Latter-day Saints, very faithful. He had a bit of a anger problem. You want to learn more about that, you can watch part 1. Now you've had 4 sons, and that took us up to the introduction of a family in your ward. Last name was Jensen. Something off with the family. The father had some issues, was put in the high council. They had a son who was the age of your oldest son.
Yes, sir. And
he went on a mission to Mesa, Arizona, and he came back after he was there for halfway or so because of a apparent injury to his back. But that was not the case.
No, sir, was not the case.
That was not the case. So if you can pick it up from there with this story of this family and this man and your family.
Okay. When he came back from his mission, it was, I believe, 2012, he came back, which I didn't know at the time, but to find out actually the police had brought him back, had been calling to get him back. They had a child that he had abused. 2 of the children had went to the police because the children had came to their mother and told them what had happened.
This is before his mission?
Before the mission.
Okay.
And so they went to the police, so the police immediately went to our local Bishop Fishel, and our stake president, Steve Grow, and asked how they can get a hold of him. They needed to talk with him. Well, they immediately said, well, he's on a mission, but I'll have to see what we can do. We'll get back to you. And they never did. They never let him know. About a month went by, and the mother who went to the police had seen his mission address on the bulletin board, so she knew where he was at then.
So this mother was in your ward?
She was in one of the wards. She was, yes, okay. Yes, sir. So she gave that address to the police, the state trooper. The state trooper, well, she got him also the mission president of that area's where he was serving's phone number. So that state trooper did call and talked to the mission president and said, hey, state police from West Virginia, we need to talk to Michael Jensen. And they had told him what it was about. So the mission president says, well, we will see what we can do about getting him back home. And he had asked as well, can you let me know when that happens? And when he did return, he came back that late the night. This I found out later, but it's very important to know this step before everything had happened. When he came back the very next morning, which this is all, it came out in our trial, it's in the evidence, everything there. He met at the stake center with our stake president, Steve Grove, with Don Rye, who was another county public defender, was also a high councilman, met with his mother, and Matt Wickham, who was a high councilman too, later to become a first counselor in the stake presidency. They met there at the stake center, and there's where they decided to not contact the police. They said, you don't have to call them, let them find you. They thought this would, I guess, blow over, and that's where they came up with the story to say, because they knew people were going to ask questions. If someone goes on a mission, they come back early, something's happened. I mean, every LDS member knows that. And so that was what was told. You know, I saw Michael Jensen in church. You know, other people did too, and we were all told from the bishop and everyone, he's back, but he's going back on his mission. You know, he just hurt his back, and he'll be going back. So, you know, no one questioned that. You don't question your bishop and stake president about that. So they moved him. He couldn't even go back to his mom's house, come to find out, because he had molested his 2 younger sisters too. So they wouldn't even let him back in their house at all. And that's why he went to live with Matt Wickham, who was his former bishop, who actually in 2006, when they moved there from Utah here, he knew at that point about Michael Jensen sexually molesting 2 young ladies here in Utah when he was only 12 years old. He was put on I believe, a year of house arrest, and the judge said he had to get counseling for that too, which he never got any counseling at all. The parents didn't do that. They moved him to Maryland and then to West Virginia. But,
so let me interrupt just for a sec. So Michael Jensen lived here when
Yes,
he was
sir.
12.
Yes, sir.
And had molested some girls.
Yes, sir.
And was charged, or was it the bishop who said you?
Oh, no. He was charged. The girls reported it at school.
Wow.
And he was charged with sexual abuse, molestation, felony charges.
Wow.
But later that got reduced. His grandfather knew somebody. This is all in the court records. You can look at it and see. He got those charges dropped to misdemeanors. But again, the judge said, well, you have a year of house arrest and you need to get counseling, because he was 12. They thought they could help him. In our state, Matt Wickham, who was his bishop at that time, knew about that. The stake president knew about it. So from 2006 to 2012, no one else ever knew that, but these leaders did. And at that point, he had molested, well, come to find out now, we're up to almost 50-some children during that 6-year span.
All within the stake?
All within the stake. And
where is he doing this?
he's, his mother and them, they would get him to babysit. They shopped him out as a babysitter. And he would go into homes, the parents would leave, and he had his way with these little children. And this all came out later. But the thing is, though, when he went to Matt Wickham's house, who lives out in the country. I live in the country myself. He lives about 15 minutes further out in the country than I do. And he was staying with Matt Wickham because they felt, I guess, that was a safe place for him. And Matt Wickham knew his history and story. But in the meantime, though, Michael Jensen still went to church, went to activities. He was all around children in the church. And but Matt Wickham, his daughter and grandchildren were coming into town to visit. So he talked to my son, because my son and Michael Jensen, he came over a couple times and played video games with my oldest son because they knew each other. But then he would take him back home. So, he was never, where he could do anything at our house at that time. So my son, he came in, I was out in the front yard with my wife. We were, I was trying to get all the thorns from rose bushes out of my hands. We were gardening, so she was smart enough to wear gloves. But my son came in, he says, hey, Dad, Matt Wickham's on his way over, he wants to talk to you. And I said, about what? He says, well, he wants to know if Michael can stay here a couple of weeks. And he asked me, and I told him that he needs to ask you or Mom. And I said, okay. And no longer did I say okay, Matt Wickham pulled into our driveway. And actually he knew of Michael Jensen's abuse all the way back from 2006. And we talked, we shook hands, like brethren do, because I served with him. I served with other leaders, the bishops, and I was a leader in the church myself. So he said, I just want to know if Michael might be able to stay here a couple weeks because my daughter's coming in town, with our grandchildren, we just don't have room for him. But really he was protecting his own grandchildren is what he was doing.
Wow.
He knew that I had young children. At that time, my youngest was 6, my second to youngest was 9, and my third oldest, I believe, was 12. And I said, sure, you're going to help anybody you can. You're going to do what you can. You're not going to turn someone away. And I said, sure, I have no trouble with that. That'd be great. He stayed there a couple of weeks. He had to visit with the stake president every week. And we knew that, but we thought it was just to keep him on track, so he could go back on his mission. So no red flags at all, nothing there happened. And the second week he was there, Matt Wickham had called and said, well, my daughter's staying a little longer. Would you mind if he stayed a little bit longer? I said, no, not at all. That's okay. About the third week there, actually I'd had a heart attack, I think 2 weeks before that. And my son actually, Caleb, who is 19 now, he saved my life. I'd actually died there in our kitchen floor.
Wow. My
heart had stopped. And he was able to do CPR and to get me going, to get me to the hospital. Good young man. I'm glad I taught him that. But so when I came home from the hospital, I was in the bed. I was sick a lot. And I was laying in our bedroom, and our living room was next to our bedroom. And, I could hear them playing, boys wrestle, do things like that. I heard that going on. And all of a sudden I heard my wife say, Caleb, get to your room now. And I heard him saying, but Mom, she says, no, go now. And I thought, what's going on? So I got up and I went out and I said, sweetheart, what's going on? She says, he just punched Michael Jensen in the face. I said, what? I thought, why? But she says, I don't know. I don't want to talk to him right now. I'll talk to him when I calm down. I said, well, I'll take care of this. So I walked into Caleb's bedroom and he was crying. And I said, Caleb, what happened? What happened? He said, Dad, while we were wrestling, he said, Michael Jensen had grabbed me by my privates. And he said, it wasn't a grab. He said, he was rubbing me, Dad. And I said, what? And he said, yeah. He said, we wrestled before he hit me, but it was different this time. So he was in my son's bedroom next door to him, the door shut. So I opened the door and I said, Michael, go to the living room now and sit on the couch. And I had my son Caleb come in too, and I had my wife. I said, dear, come over here. And I said, Michael, what happened? He says, I'm so sorry. He said, we were wrestling. I didn't mean to grab him there. I apologize. He said, Caleb, I'm so sorry. He said, accidents happen. And again, I had no red flags. So I said, well, you're never to wrestle no more. I said, I don't know horse playing in the house and nothing. I said, don't wrestle with my boys anymore. Again, because I thought an accident could have happened. But I listened to Caleb. I said, well, Caleb, and you don't wrestle anymore at all too. And I said, are you okay? He said, yeah, I'm okay. So, it calmed down. Everything there. Michael knew not to wrestle with the boys anymore. That night we had stake high council meetings at the stake center. I was there with the Addiction Recovery Challenge program, I called it. And Michael came there with my son, took him to meet with the stake president because he had to meet. And as I was done with my meetings, I came out, President Groh was there in the hallway, and we shook hands, we're talking and everything. And he said, well, how's it going with Michael at your home? I said, well, it's going okay. I said, we had a little issue today. And he started laughing. He said, yeah, I saw his eye. He said, oh, boys will be boys. I said, yeah, well, Caleb said that he grabbed him by his privates. He said, oh, that's boys, that happens when you're wrestling. Again.
Whoa.
I'm sorry, this is where I want to go back to West Virginia. Well, he moved to Texas now. I'd like to go to Texas and find him. But I'm sorry, this is hard.
It's okay.
He knew right there of his past. He knew why he was home from his mission. And he could have just said, Tom, we need to get him out of your house. Or I need to tell you something. He laughed it off as if boys will be boys. So I didn't know. I had no idea. I had no idea at all.
Tom, let me ask you something. And it's kind of a tough question, but I think, like I said, being like a party that doesn't know the story, did Wickham know, were the molestations that Jensen was involved in, were they all girls?
Oh, no. It's mostly boys, young boys. It's mostly young boys. I'd say 70% boys.
So he was aware that the problem included boys.
Oh, absolutely. Yes.
Wow.
He was his bishop when they moved here.
Wow.
And his parents told him what had happened. He knew from 2006, 2012.
Those 6 years.
Yes, and he knew exactly why he was back from his mission.
I was trying to give him the benefit of the doubt that he had molested a bunch of girls, which is terrible.
No.
And he thought, he'll be safe over at the Stollings house because they're all boys. He'll be fine. But no, he had been molesting boys too.
Absolutely. And actually the reason he came back from his mission, they got him back, it was because of 2 boys.
Wow.
And they knew that. They knew he had molested these 2 boys.
Wow.
And things kept going on. They kept separated. I thought things were going good. I got a Facebook message from one of the mothers who was in the lawsuit that happened there. She was another mother. I didn't know anything about anything at that point. She had sent me a message. She says, Brother Stollings, is Michael Jensen staying at your house? I said, yeah, he is. I said, why? She says, can I call you? I said, sure, call me right now. And I said, well, I'm not home, but you can call my cell phone number. And so she called me, and she says, well, I need to talk to you about him. And I said, well, what's wrong? She says, well, he's hurt my children. She said, but I can't tell you right now over the phone because we're driving in the van, we're going on vacation. But I need to talk to you when I get back. And I thought, okay. I said, be glad to, just let me know when you get back. And I got off the phone, I got home, I told my wife about it, and she says, whoa, that's kind of weird. So I asked Michael Jensen, I said, do you know anything about I got a call from someone said you hurt their children or something. Oh, no, I don't know what you're talking about. Nothing at all. So, a red flag, no red flags again. That Sunday, when the mother came home, she called me. She said, I'm about 30 minutes away from home. And I said, is it okay if I come over? Because, I wanted to know what she was talking about. And she said, sure. So I pulled into her driveway about the same time they pulled in. And her sister was with her. Her sister took her children upstairs. And we sat down in the living room, and she started crying. And that's when she had told me that he had sexually molested her 2 boys while he was babysitting them at his home, at his parents' home, in the basement of their home. And I was like, oh my gosh. And, I told her, I said, do you need to go to the police? Did you report this to the police? And she started crying. She said, no, Tom, I didn't. And I said, why? And she said, well, my husband and I, we went to Bishop Fischel. We reported it to him like we're supposed to tell our bishop. Said he heard us. He said he would talk to them. He talked to the Jensen parents. He talked to Michael himself. And he reported back to them that her children were lying and that he believed Michael and the family. He said what they told him was Michael was in his basement, was going through his dad's pornography movies. I'm like, he's a high councilman. He has a whole collection of pornography in his basement. I'm like, wow. And I asked her, I was like, that's just wrong. And he said that's what they told him. So the boys walked down, saw Michael observing these videos, and they asked him questions. So they've got it mixed up. What they said happened to them is what they saw in the video. So I told Bishop Fischel, I said, well, did you call the police? He says, no, why would I? I said, well, they've just admitted to, that they saw pornography, these children. I said, that's against the law. Well, it's just video, Tom. I said, but that's wrong. He said, well, we do what we can. He said, try to help them best we can. So I was furious about it. So I went back to the home. I told my wife what had happened.
And Michael Jensen's in your house?
Michael Jensen's in our house. And I said, Michael, you and I need to take a drive.
Oh, boy.
And
it's kind of terrifying with your earlier story.
Well, my wife says, Tom, what are you doing? And I said, I need to talk to him, but I need to be alone with him when I talk to him. And we drove. Had to go up a mountain. We went up top of the mountain there, and there's a wide spot there. And I pulled over, and I turned the car off. And I said, Michael, I need to talk to you. And I told him exactly what I was told. I said, is this true? And he was crying, oh, no, Brother Stollings, that's not true. He said the exact same thing that Bishop Fischel said. I was watching my dad's porn movies, and they walked down. I would never do anything like that, So I thought, okay. I said, well, let's go back home. And I told him to go back home. We went in, and I set him on the couch. I had my wife come in and my oldest son, who was friends with him. And I told my wife the more detail, and I told my son the detail. And I had Michael tell them what he said, too, that it was just pornography movies they were seeing. But still yet, I said, well, Michael, I can't let you stay here no more. I don't feel comfortable. He said, but I have nowhere to go. I said, well, I'll tell you what, you need to find a place, and I'll talk to the bishop and all of them too. I said, but until then, you're not to come out of the bedroom. Only time you come out of the bedroom is if my son or my wife or I are here, you let us know. We'll go to the bathroom with you. If you need to come eat, we'll be with you. I said, but I don't want you out until I can get you out of here. And he agreed to it, and I told my wife and son right there, I said, you don't let him out of your sight. I said, because I have to find out, the truth of this. And I said, in the meantime, I don't want to take any chances. And I immediately went into my younger 3 children's bedrooms, and I just talked to them, say, hey, how y'all doing? I said, so how is it with Michael here? I said, yeah, has he ever hurt you or anything like that? And immediately they froze. They didn't cry, but they denied. They said, no, Dad, no, he hasn't done anything. And so I let it go at that, and I told my wife, I said, there's something not right. And I said, I don't know what to do. I said, I don't know how to talk to him, and I don't want to put something in her head, but I also don't want to do, something like that. So, but he stayed there approximately maybe 3 more days. Then he started staying with one of his other friends in Frederick, Maryland, which is about 40 minutes from our house. He was staying there. He did come back, and he said, well, I found a place. I'll be going there like in a couple of days. I'll be able to stay there full time. And again, I had the same rules. You don't come out of the bedroom unless somebody's with you. And I was at the time, I was working with Berkeley County Sheriff's Department. I was a deputy reserve there for them, and I was on an assignment. And my wife had called me on the phone. She says, you need to come home now. I said, what's wrong? Are you okay? She said, yeah. I said, are the boys okay? She said, yeah, but you got to come home now. I said, well, what's wrong? She says, Tom, come home. Sorry.
Okay.
And when I got home, I pulled in, and which I was in my police cruiser and everything too, but I pulled in, and his father was in the driveway standing there, and he immediately come up saying, hi, how you doing? He said, well, I've heard about your sickness. You know, you had a heart attack and stuff. And he said, I just want to, if Michael could still stay, if I give you some money to help out. And I said, I don't want your money. I said, I don't mind helping somebody. I said, but no, he's not staying. And so we started talking, and we kind of moved around the backside of our house, and my wife came out the back door on the porch, and his name was Chris Jensen, and she actually said, Chris, have you told Tom yet? And he just kept talking to me like he didn't even hear her. And she said it again. I said, Juliet's talking to you. I said, what's she talking about? No, I haven't said anything yet. I said, what is going on? And Juliet says, if you don't tell him, I'm going to. So he said, well, Michael had to go into court today. You know, he's been accused of hurting some children. And I said, hurting children, what do you mean? He said, oh, it's nothing, Matt. I can't even talk about it. I'm sorry. I said, well, who's the family? Who was it? Oh, I can't tell you that name. And I said, you can't tell me the name? And Juliet says, Chris, you tell him or I will. And so he told me the name. And I said, wait, that's a different name from another mother that just told me this a couple of weeks ago. And he said, well, I don't know nothing about that one. And I said, no. I said, you need to get your son, and you need to get out of here. And he said, well, can we come back this evening and get it, the stuff? I said, sure. I said, but he's not to come in the house. I said, keep him in the car. You can come to the door, and I'll give you his stuff. And so immediately we go inside. My wife and I, we sit our children down, and we try to talk to them one-on-one. And they still denied. But, you know, my youngest had tears in his eyes. And I told my wife, I says, something's happened. And I said, I know it in my heart. And she did too. And so we called the counselor and tried to set an appointment up with them to talk, to see if someone professional who could see would know more about this. And but the counselor saw him, and the counselor says, well, there's something there, you know, and it'll take a few sessions to see what it is. And I said, well, should I try to talk to him? She says, don't. She said, just be a loving parent like you are. When they're ready, if something happened, they'll talk to you about it. So in the meantime, Michael Jensen's just floating around from house to house. They're putting him someplace else. About 2 weeks passed. Well, a wonderful young lady who I was her family's home teacher for like 14 years. Their father and their family was excommunicated. I was always their home teacher. They called me dad. They called my mom mom. You know, they were just like family. I knew them from like 6 up to 17, 18, 19 years old. She was staying with us, and she went to a church activity, and she had mentioned to my wife that she was hanging out with Michael Jensen. And I called her on the phone. I said, no. I said, and I told her what had been said. Oh, well, I'm safe. You know, I'll make sure I'm safe. And I said, well, you need to come back home here now. I said, he's not safe to be around. And about an hour later, she did come back home, but I was asleep already. And because she was at a church activity with him. And about 3 days later, my wife comes in the bedroom, and she said, I got to talk to you, Tom. I said, what? What's happened? She said, I just got off the phone talking. I won't say the young lady's name. And but she had told me that Michael Jensen has hurt her, and that he had raped her in the church parking lot. And said that she's hurt really bad, and said she has cuts, bruises, She had bite marks all over her body. I was like, what? I said, go to the police now. They said, well, she wants you to help her. I said, where is she? We'll go get her now. Well, she's on her way here to the house now. So I talked to her and I said, you got to get photographs of these, because I could see the bite marks, and I mean, she didn't undress anything like that, nothing inappropriately, but you could see the teeth marks that this animal bit this little girl. Well, she was 19, but he bit her. It was awful. So I called the state police and I talked to them. I told them what had happened. They said, can you bring her in tomorrow? So my wife and I, we took her into the state police. You know, they got statements and photographs there. They took copies of her photographs that her mom took of her for them. In the meantime, I called the state president. I says, this is what's happened. What is going on?
And what year is this now?
This is still 2012.
Still
when he was still back, ready to go back on his mission.
Wow.
Yeah. And the state president says, what? Tom, you need to bring her to me now. I said, state president said, I'm not bringing her to you. I said, I have her going to the police today. What? Why are you doing that? I said, it's the thing to do, President Grow. Okay, well, can you get her to me this evening after she meets there? I gotta talk to her. And I said, yeah. I said, I'll ask her if she wants to, she can. My wife took her that night to meet the state president. She came out, she came back home. She was in tears and crying, and we talked to her, and she said that she had told the state president everything. And she said, state president, she has to go through a repentance process. And I said, a repentance process? She said, well, I shouldn't have been out in the van talking to him, you know, alone. Because, you know, young men, young women are not supposed to be alone like that, even though he's, 21, a missionary, and she's 19. But he said that she had to go through a repentance process because, you know, she knew better to be out there. You don't be alone with a guy like that. But he had told her, well, it's not your fault, but, you know, you made some choices that you should have made better choices. And if I'd have been, I don't know, I should have went and knocked him out then. I really should have. But it just infuriated me. So I went to the state president again, and because I was trying to do everything right. I said, President Grove, and even Bishop Fish, I says, you've got to stand up. You've got to hold some meetings, or, you know, during Sunday school or priesthood, Relief Society. You've got to talk to parents. I said, you've got to let them know about this so they could talk to. What? We can't do that, Tom. I don't want to hurt his family's reputation. And I said, but he's a criminal. I said, what he did is wrong. Well, he hasn't been tried yet. And you know, he hasn't been to court and tried and found guilty of it. I said, found guilty of it? I said, President Grove, she had bite marks all over her. And I said, he's been, you know, got these complaints abusing these children. I said, you're not going to do, no, we can't do that. I said, well, I'll do it. What? You can't do that. And I said, well, yeah, I can. So I went home and I told my wife, and we immediately started to, anybody we thought that he stayed with, we sent him a message. You need to talk to your children of what's happened. And so I got a phone call that state president wants to talk to me. I thought, sure, I'll come talk to you. I go in and he says, I'm hearing these rumors that you're telling people go to the police and stuff, and you're calling people. I said, it's not a rumor, it's a fact. And he hit his hand down like that. Ow, hurt my thumb. And it's okay. But he said, Tom, you don't have the priesthood authority to do that. Why are you calling these members? I said, they got to know. I said, they need to go to the police. He said, that's not how we do it, Tom. He says, you're supposed to come to your bishop and your stake president. And he pulled this book over. He opened it. He said, see this number right here? He said, this is the helpline number. We're to report to the helpline number in Salt Lake City. And they'll tell us what we need to do to help them heal and to, you know, get past this. And so I said, well, President Grow, all due respect to you, you can stick your book where the sun don't shine. I said, because I'm going to the police and I'm going to tell everybody I can. Well, we don't want that in the church. Do not be causing contention in the church, you know, in the meetings and stuff. So I left there pretty angry, but I also left there hurt. And I don't mean to make any of this about me, because it's not. But I was like, I just served with you President Grow, I've been serving with you for 4 or 5 years. And I was hurt. I was crushed. This was a man that I thought was godly as they could come, you know? And I'm like, why? And, you know, I asked him, I said, why would you say that? He says, that's how it's done. He said, it's in my book, my book here, what I'm supposed to, you know, handbook of instruction. He says, you know, you have no right. You know, the leaders will take care of this. And it just frustrated me. So we started reaching out to other families. And then I saw President Grow again. He says, well, people are not going to worry about Michael Jensen. He said, because we're sending him out to his uncle's house tomorrow. He has some kind of farm or something out west here somewhere. But you know what they do on that farm? They do farm, but they also foster children. Oh. And they were going to send him there. So I immediately, I drove to the state police station and I went in and I talked. I said, why is he not arrested yet? I said, he's raped this girl. You've got reports. Well, we're trying to get it through the prosecuting attorney's office where we can do it. I said, well, you need to do it fast. I said, because he's leaving tomorrow morning on a Greyhound bus. And they said, what? How do you know that? I said, President Grow just told me. And so they went immediately and arrested him. And he has never seen daylight since then. So, thank you.
He hasn't seen daylight since, so this was still 12 between the mission going back. He never went back.
No, never went back.
You had him arrested, and then we had to go to trial. We had to go through all that, the adjudication process.
Yes.
And he has been put away?
Oh yeah, he's in prison now 35 to 75 years. He has the mandatory 35 years. And then if he does, he's not going to do it, get through, in other words, probation or whatever it's called, he has to serve 20 years in a sex facility, supervised and not out in the public. So he's never going to hit the streets again.
The charges that he was convicted of were?
3 charges of sexual abuse of minor. There are 3 different charges. And,
was the rape one?
Yes, rape, sexual abuse, and something abuse of a minor as something. But he was but they had to get it first. Reason it took so long to come to find out, when he was charged when the police were looking in the beginning, because he was under 18 at that time when he molested those 2 young boys. He was 16 or 17. They filed it under children law. But then they had to move it to adult court. And I guess that took a couple of weeks to get that process done. Which it did, it got moved to adult court. So he was in jail the whole time. Wow. And the President Grow was not happy about that. And he says, Tom, well, what jail is he in? I said, we only have 1 jail here, President Grow. And he says, well, I'd like to go visit him and see how things are going. I said, well, you need to visit the families, President Grow. I said, they need you. At this time, I was angry, but I still had faith in the church. I thought, do the right thing. Be the stake president you are. You're supposed to be. Love. I'm going to go see them and help them all. I said, they need help. And then my phone started ringing. Families started coming to me. Tom, what do we do? I talked to my children, and they've been abused. And I said, we got to go to the police. That's the first thing to do. But should I go to the stake president? I says, no, do not. I said, go to the police first, then you go to the stake president. And so I took him to the police. Several of them, my wife and I drove them there, and some, they went there. I called the police and set up a time for them to meet to get statements from them. And that's when it came down to 5 families had reported to the police then. Michael Jensen was in jail at the time. And again, I was trying to get him to go. President Grow never once went and talked to one family. He left a voice message on one of the moms. This is President Grow. I'd like to talk to you if that's okay. Give me a call. He never says, I'm sorry, what's happened to your family? What's happened to your children?
Wow.
What can we do to help you?
Yeah.
And so I was furious. I made a good trail from my house to the stake center to talk to him many a times. I was like, you got to do something. And he says, Tom, you are putting yourself in a position that you have no authority. You're not to talk to these members. You're to send them to me. If someone tells you they've been abused, you tell them come see me first. And I said, President Grow, it's not happening. I said, they're going to the police first. And I said, yes, I have told them to come to you, but not until they go to the police first. And so there was a lot of contention there.
Yeah.
But here I was trying to help and to make some kind of sense of this nightmare. But yet I was still trying to get the church to help, to do something. And I said, we need to talk to these parents. I said, you need to counsel with them. Oh, we will, but it never happened. So as my wife and I were talking to the parents, the rumors started getting out. People started knowing what families were hurt. And you know what? The members should have been loving and kind, but they got angry with the families and myself. What are you doing? You're hurting our church. They started unfriending us on Facebook. The Relief Society president wrote this nasty email to my wife because she posted Michael Jensen's arrest picture on Facebook. Because your friends about every member there, which I don't have any of them now. They all left me, but that's okay. I didn't need them. But they're like, why would you do that? It's hurting our church. Why would, don't do that. So,
unbelievable.
And my wife was just broken. Everybody was pretty much in shock. So what I did, and I talked to the parents, I says, let's get together. Let's see what we can do. So I started at my home. I invited them to come to my home. And we had cookouts. And the parents were able to talk and try to make sense of this, why the children would play and do things. We tried to love and support one another.
So Tom, was this 4 other families in addition to you being the 5th?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
And so their parents and the kids would come for the cookouts?
Yes, sir. We would do that.
You did the job of the stake president, essentially.
Well, I did the human thing. I did what I think Heavenly Father would want done, to love and support these people, which I was getting love and support too. We were supporting one another. That's all we had. I have, the bishops tell me, you don't have this priesthood authority to do that. Members deleting us off Facebook, sending us nasty messages. And which, I would go knock on the door and say, what do you want to say to me? I saw what you wrote. The door would be locked immediately.
Wow.
So, and I was told stay away or they'd call the police. I thought, okay, fine, no problem.
So and we'll get more into the story, but as to what happens as you continue on with the 4 families in your own, but what do you think, looking back, was the motive behind the leadership, and what is the thinking behind the members who turned on you? What is the motive? It could be the one and the same, but in your estimation, what were they all individually kind of thinking to try to do to Tom Stalling?
They wanted to shut me up. They didn't want me to be speaking out because it was hurting the image of the church.
Solely image of
church.
Mormon church.
Absolutely. There is no doubt in my mind that the church's image is the main thing that they care most about. Because all the years as a member of the church, I always heard and believed we love families, we love the children, we protect them. That's bullcrap. They didn't protect any of these children. They did not help these families. So, and after all that happened, I go back to President Grow again. I guess I'm trying to do the right thing.
Are you still faithful?
I'm faithful in God, yes, but it kept clicking. It kept getting angrier and angrier. My eyes started opening to see that this is not a true leader. This is not a representation of God. This stake president is evil, and it's not right. So I told him, I said, President Grow, I said, these families are hurt. I've been meeting with them. I've been trying to help them. You've done nothing. And I said, they need counseling. And I said, something's got to happen. I said, I'd like to use the Stake Center as a place where I can get help. And I said, I know the LDS Social Services Director. He was a counselor. I said, I know him personally because we were friends. We worked through the addiction recovery program together. I said, I'd like to contact him and see if he would come into a group meeting or something. Well, as long as it's here at church and it's a church counselor, yes, you can do that. And he said, but I need you to do something. He says, you really need to push to these parents that forgiveness is a must. And I said, President Grow, I said, I can't do that. He says, but you need to tell them they need to quit talking to media. They need to quit going to the police. They need to come talk to me. I said, but you're not talking to them, President Grow. And I said, I won't go in a meeting and do that. And that's when he says, well, do you mind if Brother Palmer comes in? He's a high councilman. His child also was abused by Michael Jensen. This young child, this little boy, he has no arms, no way to defend himself. His arms are missing from here down. They adopted him. He was sexually abused. Come to find out, he knew about it. His wife knew about it. His wife was a nurse. They went to the stake president about it when it happened. They even went to the Jensen's family. And, you know, he had abrasions on him from where Michael Jensen hurt him. But, you know, they said, well, we have to forgive you. You know, we'll forgive you, but, you know, we just don't want you babysitting anymore. Did they go to the police? No. Were they mandatory reporters? Yes. She was a nurse.
Wow.
He worked at the Pentagon in D.C.
Wow.
As a contractor. Didn't go to the police, didn't report it. So, but at the time, I didn't know that. But he come in, he introduced him to in there, which I knew Brother Palmer. He says, yeah, my son was hurt too. He says, is it okay if I come into your all's meeting too?
So Grove, or is it Grove or Grow?
Grow, G-R-O-W.
So Grow, he sets up Palmer to come in knowing what happened, but you didn't know what happened with Palmer's son.
Yeah, and I knew he was abused. That's the only reason I let him come to our meeting. I thought he was coming in as another parent to help.
Okay.
But what had happened, he had the assignment from President Grow to come in and tell the moms and everyone, hey, you need to forgive.
I'm really having trouble not using that word you hate, but use. I mean, I wanted to say fuckers. I just want to say that.
I hate that word with a passion, and I'll tell you.
Don't hate the sinner.
No, I don't hate the sinner, but I'll tell you why. When I get very angry, that's the first word that comes out of my mouth.
It's just insane what this institution has done.
I know.
Last night, and then this. It's insane.
Yes, it's heartbreaking. It's like it's
Jonestown.
It's like it's not real. It's like a nightmare. And
it's a nightmare.
Yeah, and it's still a nightmare to this day. And they're still walking the streets, serving in leadership positions in the church. They've never been held accountable by the police for knowing all this knowledge. I've been at the prosecuting attorney's office 3 times since our trial ended. And they say, oh, Tom, well, it's already over. You all settled. I said, that was civil. What are you going to do criminal? We just don't have the funds, you know. Plus, they've, you know, Palmer now lives here in Utah.
So wait, I'm going to stop you. Palmer comes into your meeting. What does he do?
Oh, he comes in and, you know, he greets everybody, and he goes on to preaching about repentance and how, you know, well, if you have this anger, you need to repent for that. You know, you need to forgive. You need to stay steadfast in the church. You know, you need to not be going to the police and stuff like that. He says, I know stuff about Christopher Jensen, who was Michael's dad, that could put him in prison for years. He said, but I don't go out telling everybody about that. He said, I'm not going to do that. He says, he's a brother of the church. And my wife told him right there, and another mom says, if you know this stuff, why don't you go to the police and report it? I can't do that. That's not how we do things. So I walked up to him, I said, get your A out of here. I'm done with you. You're no longer welcomed in this meeting.
Wow.
So
good for you.
So we ended the meeting, and he immediately shot to the stake president's office to report to President Grow. Also sent some emails to President Grow to give him an update on everything, which I sent an email to President Grow myself, telling him the meeting went well. I was very disappointed in Mont Palmer, what he had did. So what happened after that, Mont Palmer messaged me a couple of times. And I told him, I said, you need to tell your story. I said, what you know it happened can help so much. And I asked him, I said, are you willing to tell your story to an investigator? He said, well, yeah, as long as it's kind of kept quiet, I don't mind. So he did. He met with the investigator, which was Tim Kosnoff, who's an attorney, who has had many lawsuits against the church, against the Catholic Church, against Boy Scouts of America. He willingly let Mr. Kosnoff record it, had no problems at all. On that recording, you know, he admitted to a lot of stuff. He admitted to knowing this for years. He admitted that the state presidency knew about it all the way back to 2007. Everyone knew about this child abuser, but they never warned anybody. So, but he did that. So when they came to Utah to do his deposition, after he had met with the Mormon lawyers, Kurt McConaughey's office, he didn't remember anything. We were lying about everything that we said he said.
Wow.
So after they let him hang himself in his deposition, denying all this stuff, they hit him with the recording. And I wasn't there, but the lawyer says that the Mormon lawyer's jaws hit the floor. And they admit, he's like, what is he talking about, a recording? And, I forgot to tell y'all that I did a recording there. So immediately, what the church done, and this, gosh, it makes me so mad. I just want to go through I'm starting to shake. I just want to go get the prophet in them now and just shake the daylights out of them. I truly do.
I love you, man.
I do. I
just love you.
I think I can give them the right salvation if I had the opportunity. I truly do. But immediately, they filed motions to get that evidence throughout. They said, Tim Kosnoff, Dr. Dad, he took parts out of it. So what had happened, we had to get experts to take that and spend thousands of dollars, which the Mormon church had already spent millions trying to keep it out. They filed suit and everything. They tried to get Tim Kosnoff disbarred as a lawyer, said, he did this illegal. So, but they got it, and the experts said, there's no doctrine in this at all. It's never been touched. Wow. So they tried to get that evidence out of the trial. They spent millions of dollars fighting that fight. Wow. But you know what? They lost. Wow. That evidence came into court, and it just smashed them. Wow. Like a hammer smashing a peanut. They got smashed with it, hated it. And they even tried to get the state trooper fired from his job. Wow. They tried, because he came to Utah to get the police records of the 2 girls he molested here. Huh. They were furious and they even went to the place where it came from, public records, was angry with the people there in the courthouse who gave that information. Wow. They went back and did everything to get this officer filed. They filed complaints against him, said he did that illegally and all this stuff. To get Michael Jensen's records from the abuse here to show the history of it. They spent millions of dollars trying to get that evidence out of the trial. This is why we kept going, it went on for 6 years. Wow. But guess what? They got squashed too. That evidence was there. They weren't happy about it. And all of this is in public record. You can see this. You can see it there. But today, you ask the church, they'll deny it still yet. It blows me away. I'm like, it's black and white there. How can you deny it? Well, that's just how it's written up. But it was a nightmare. We went through 3 judges to get this to trial. The first judge, we didn't know at the time, he had an illness where he had memory trouble and stuff. So he had a local lawyer be the mediator in between. And just so happened this lawyer was best friends with one of the local church lawyers that the church had. So anything the church wanted, he'd give it to them. And they tried to, he agreed that Michael Jensen's attorney fees needed paid, his own attorney, the abuser. So the church agreed to pay their half of it if our kids paid the other half. And we're like, what? No way. So we had to go to the West Virginia Supreme Court. The West Virginia Supreme Court heard it, and they said, we have never in our life heard of anything like this, that a judge signs off to say that the children who were sexually abused by this monster had to pay his attorney fees. This was thousands of dollars. But the church, they were going to pay their 50%. They had no trouble with that. Wow. So the Supreme Court immediately ruled against it, overruled that judge. Wow. We come back, a trial date set. We're excited to be able to tell the truth. The church asked for a 6-month delay.
Those
guys. The judge gave it to them. Okay, so it came back again. Church asked for another 6-month delay.
Just stringing it because it's more money.
Yeah, it's more. Money's not a problem to them. They have billions and billions of dollars.
Crush you.
But it crushes us. It wears you down.
Sure.
And this is where, this is when my PTSD came in. I was like, screw that. That's enough of that. This judge, I need to talk to him. And so I should have never did what I did.
Oh, nice. Let's hear this.
But I called his office, and I was wanting to set an appointment to come in and talk to him, but they wouldn't let me talk to him. So I left him a voice message, and I said, Your Honor, what you're doing is wrong. I said, do not let the Mormon Church delay this trial any longer. It needs to go to court. I said, if you don't, I'm coming to the courthouse and I'm going to bring thousands of people to protest against you. This is wrong. Well, he immediately discussed himself from the case because he felt that he was threatened and get there. And I'm like, okay, my lawyer says, Tom, what did you do? I said, I'm sorry.
So that was judge number 2.
As judge number 1 still yet. So he took him from the case. So we got another trial set for 3 months later with a new judge, which was Judge Yoder, who, he's dead now. He died of a heart attack once we were back at the Supreme Court the second time.
I'm glad you added a heart attack was involved because I'm worried about what you are.
Yeah, well, no. Well, actually, one of the lead lawyers who was out of New York, he had a heart attack and died too.
Wow.
He was a piece of crap. I hated him.
Wow.
He's the one that, in my 16-year-old now, my second to youngest son's deposition, he tore the kids apart. Wow. He tried to make him feel uncomfortable, but he had his phone on there. And he says, I don't know how to do this on my phone. Do you know anything about it? And my son says, yeah, you got to do this and that. He says, what a smart ass. He said that in the deposition. Wow. With the judge-appointed lady sitting there playing on her phone, who's supposed to make sure the children were okay, called him that. So I jumped up. I was going to put him through the wall and out the window. And my lawyer says, Tom, no. And I looked at him. I said, did you hear what he just said? What'd he say? I said, get off your freaking phone and do your job. Go outside. My lawyer took me out of there quickly. That's okay. I didn't mind. But it was wrong. He called a little child dead. And that's the mentality of these lawyers. Yeah. I mean, during depositions, they would sit and laugh. They would laugh at us. They would talk about, today's Thursday. We get our Mormon check today. Wow. The one lawyer always talked about, Pollock was his name, I'm buying a BMW with my money. I'm going to drive across the country. Wow. Come to find out he did drive across the country. Guess who he drove across the country with? His state president. And guess where they came? Salt Lake City. They met with the prophet and many of them. So that's where he drove his new BMW.
So Yoder's the second? Yoder's
the second there. We were 2 days from the trial. The church was still fighting to get all this evidence out. And Judge Yoder, he looked up there. He said, I just don't want this. He said, I wish somebody called my office so I wouldn't have to do this case. And we're sitting there in the courtroom, the parents are, we're crying our eyes out. Like, this guy has been appointed to judge, to uphold the law. And he's sitting up there saying, and it's all on record, public record, because they had to put all that there. It's there. It shows what he said. Wow. And he said, well, I tell you what, if we go on with the trial, I want each one of you to give me a list of what you don't want in the trial, because, we need to shorten this trial. So, of course, the list of the Mormon lawyers with all the evidence out. And our lawyer says, we can't do that. We don't have a case if you don't let all our evidence in there. So they said, we had to go back to West Virginia Supreme Court again. So that delayed it another year. So during that time, that judge had died, but it went to the Supreme Court. They're like, oh my gosh, you're back again, and this is outrageous. And they went through it all. They said, there's nothing being taken out of this case. That is evidence. And the jury has the right to hear this, and they make the ruling on it. And the only thing that the church lawyers said, and there's video of that too, on West Virginia Supreme Court, you can watch it. The only thing they wanted, they didn't deny anything that's free. They said, well, only thing we want is a conspiracy thing taken out, because we don't want them to think there's conspiracy. We don't want to be charged with conspiracy. And you know what the Supreme Court told them? Nice try. No, it's staying. So they sent it back to Berkeley County for a third judge, because the second judge died. And which we wouldn't have let him be a judge anyway. We would have asked for a super judge or someone to come in because of what he did. Judge Wilkes was his name. He's actually the judge that sentenced Michael Jensen to 35 to 75 years in prison. So we thought, okay, we have a chance. We think we have somebody who's going to do his job right. So all the trial, all the way up, the very first day we're sitting in there, he said, I want you all to know something. I'm telling you both sides. I don't want to hear anything. The evidence is here. It's going to be shown. We're not adding anything. We're not taking away anything. We're going to do this trial. And of course, we're as happy as can be. We thought, finally, we're going to get some justice. But he said, I want you all to know something. I've never had a trial go over 4 weeks before, and I don't like long trials. So he said, so you all need to actually settle this now. And he always did his hands together like that. I think he had some kind of hand fungus or something, I don't know. But he'd always say, settle this case now. And he said, I'm going to give you magical numbers where I think it should be. And but we wouldn't even hear it. Our lawyers came to us and were like, no, this trial, we want the evidence out there. It has to be told. And because we refused to ever be silenced. We would never do it because the public, America, the world needed to know the truth. So as the trial progressed, the judge did everything he could to make us settle this with the Mormon Church. The second day of the trial, he stopped it. He said he made them take out all their computers, electronics, TVs, anything that was helping both sides, where they had it all there, they could put it on the screen. He said, we're going back old school. Y'all going to make copies of everything. He tried to pressure, so much pressure to make us settle. And then as people started testifying, this judge started allowing the Mormon Church lawyers to bring in stuff that had nothing to do with the case. After he had said in the beginning he would never do that. Well, let's hear what they got to say. I think the jury deserves to hear what Tom Stollings did 24 years ago when he was married, because I haven't been married before for 3.5 years. I'm sorry I didn't tell you that in the beginning.
All right.
But they deserve to hear that. I'm like, it's crazy. But when I got on the stand the first day, was testifying at the end of the day, a lawyer had asked me a question about the pamphlet. I had the stake president sent who I thought was my best friend, Tony Nagel. We worked very good together in in leadership in the church. Came to my house and brought these pamphlets from Dallin Oaks about, you can't sue people, you can't talk ill about the church, criticism. I mean, you've probably read it. Criticism. And it says, Tom, people love you. These families love and support you. This was before the trial started. Their sins are upon you if you don't get them to drop all this stuff. Because it tells you here the prophets of God had said you can't do this. So we expect you, because they love and respect you, to put a stop to this. So the only stop was his voice and him going out the door. And I turned that evidence over to our attorneys. It was the second exhibit in the trial. It was very powerful information against them. But as I was on the stand, that's what we were reading over. I cried. I broke down. I did. It was the end of the day. The judge said, well, we'll stop here. We'll get the day. It'll be over. He dismissed the jury. They went out of the room. And I was crying, and I said, may I step down? I guess, go ahead. And so I went to step down. And as I was walking down between the pews, the Mormon lawyers and several of the Mormon leaders were there. They were just laughing, shaking their head. And I thought, okay, you're done. But I stopped because the lawyer got a hold of my arm here. And I said, I hate you. I hate every one of you. And the judge, what? He's hitting his mouth down. You don't say that in my courtroom. And you sit down right over there. You're going to spend the night in jail. And I thought, okay. But I kind of blinked out from that point. I don't remember much about it, but he reprimanded me. He said, don't do that again. And he says, there's no one here to impress. And I said, Your Honor, I'm not trying to impress anyone. I said, they were looking and smiling at me. Well, people can smile all they want, but they were trying to intimidate me.
Sure.
So we went on with the trial. Actually, I was very upset about that. And as we were leaving the courtroom, we were going down the stairs. I'd actually collapsed because I have an aneurysm on my heart. It's about ready to burst, actually, but insurance won't pay for that until it gets to 5.2, and it's 5.1. So we're waiting for it to either burst and I die, or we have surgery where the insurance will pay for it.
Nice.
So that's okay. I'm all right with that. But I did collapse, and I fell down the stairs, and I had to be taken to the hospital. And I was in the hospital overnight the next day. And so the third day, the trial resumed, and I did go back on the stand. And by the third day of the trial, I kept testifying. It was the morning I was there. A Mormon family came in, local Mormon family that I knew very well. I've been to both of his daughters' weddings in the temple. We donated money to his one daughter who had cancer. I thought, really great family, and we talked in the beginning of it there. Then they went on into the courtroom because I was a witness. I couldn't come in until they told me to, because they were always talking to the judge about something I wasn't allowed to hear. So I was there, but when I went into the witness stand there, throughout that whole trial era, the Mormon lawyers kept saying, Tom, you're just in this for money. I said, I don't want your money. I said, you take your money and do what you want to with it. I said, I only want justice. Oh, so do you want to drop out of the case? And I was like, well, I don't want to drop out of the case because I didn't know if I could. I thought I'd have a lot of money to pay to the lawyers. That was one thought, but I thought no. Then at the end of the day, I told my wife, I says, I don't want their money. I don't want it. And so she talked to the attorneys, and the attorney says, they wouldn't charge me a penny if I wanted to, because that's what the church kept saying. They made me the abuser. They said Tom Stollings is one who orchestrated all this. He went to these families, had them make up these lies, say their children were hurt. They came after me because I wouldn't do what they wanted me to do. And I wouldn't cover it up. So I told him, I said, I will drop. So I was on break. It was a break. And my plan was, when I came in, when our lawyer came back to question me, they were going to ask, Tom, do you want to stay in this case? And I was going to say no. But while I was in the hallway, this same gentleman, stake leader that I knew as friends, we passed coming out of the bathroom, but I was standing in the hallway there. It's like a 10-foot foyer going into the courtroom from the hallway. We were on the 3rd floor. I was standing there looking over. Well, he gets to the door. He said, oh, Tom. I said, yeah. He said, I just want you to know something. I said, what's that? He said, after going in here and talking to the Mormon lawyers, he says, it's you raping and molesting the church. They did not rape and molest your children. I said, what did you say? And he said it again. I said, you need to get your A in that courtroom and make sure you sit over with the other Mormon side. He said, I will, but he kept standing there. So I stepped toward him. I said, I'm telling you what, go in there or I'm throwing you over this balcony. It's 3 floors down. And he went back in. I'm glad he did, because I would not want to be arrested for doing that. But I just started crying. It hurt. It hurt me into my heart that this man that I went to the temple with his daughters and stuff would say such a thing. So I knocked on the door. The officer was standing there. I told him, I said, I've just been verbally assaulted again by another church member. And he wasn't even supposed to do that. I'm a witness. You're not allowed to tamper and to, do things to a witness like that. And he said, I'll let the judge know. So I didn't know if he did or not. I knew later, but he did let the judge know. Did the judge take a break and investigate it right there? No. With the trial, he's okay. We'll look at it later. We'll talk about it later. I came in, I was still in tears, and we went to talk. The lawyer had asked me a few questions, and he says, Tom, the church lawyers keep saying, do you want to drop from the case? I said, I do. I said, but let me tell you something first. I said, do I feel I deserve to be in the case? I said, absolutely. I said, they've hurt me dearly. I said, but I don't want their money. I said, even though they have attacked me, verbally, so many different ways, tortured me through the last 6 years, blame me for everything, I don't want in the case. And I said, actually, just 15 minutes ago, the judge stopped right there. He asked the jury to leave the room. The jury left. He said, I'm calling a mistrial. You all need to settle this, or I'm calling a mistrial. And everybody's like, why? Oh, he can't say that. We haven't even got to investigate that yet to see if it's true. He's about to tell the jury that, he's assaulted out there. And I said, Your Honor, I didn't say I was assaulted. I was going to say I was burnt. Shut up. We don't want to hear from you. Get out of here. Get off my stand and get out of here. So they ran me out of the courtroom. And that's why we had to settle when we did. It was 10 weeks into the trial, because he was going to force his mistrial. And immediately, the Mormon lawyer says, yes. Oh, yeah, that was wrong. We haven't even got to investigate yet. Yeah, it shows what a liar he is and how he makes stuff up. And so when all this was going on, they did call the gentleman in to the courtroom. The police did talk to him, and he denied it all. He says, he's lying. I don't even know what he's talking about. So they come out. It's a nightmare. Everyone's going crazy. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I didn't do anything. But they're accusing me of doing this, but I couldn't talk to anybody. So I'm still a witness on the stand. Yeah, but I told my wife, I said, why are they doing? Oh, he said, you're lying, Tom. I said, look, there's videos of cameras everywhere. Tell them, check the cameras. And actually, a friend of mine who was an officer there too, he says, check the cameras. And, like that, whispered to me, which I knew that anyway. So they went and checked the cameras in, and it showed it all, everything I said, but it didn't hear anything.
Yeah.
You couldn't hear, but you could see. So they call him back in, says, what is this here? You did, yeah, well, we did talk. I'm sorry, I lied to you. But I didn't say what he said, I said, oh. The judge says, well, it's okay, just leave the courtroom. Again, did they arrest him for lying to a law of the court? Right. Did they arrest him for verbally assaulting a witness, intimidating a witness? No. He still went on. Well, I'm still calling a mistrial. If you all don't settle this, it needs done. We're going to stop the trial. We'll convene in like a week. You all got the weekend. You all need to figure something out.
Let me clarify something from my own mind. You wanted to settle, or you wanted to get out of it because they were accusing you of just going after money.
Yes, I wanted to show them that no. I wanted to prove them wrong there. I didn't want the money. So they knew that would tug at your heartstring as an honest man. You're doing this for money, Tom, and you kind of said, screw, I'm not doing this for money, I'm out. Absolutely.
I see.
That's exactly why I did it. And I told 3 of their lawyers, because I was questioned by like 5 of them. And what I haven't mentioned, what the church did, they paid for all of these, the stake president, the bishop, the abusers' mom and dads, Mont Palmers. He paid for all of their attorney fees. But what they didn't tell anybody, they got them separate lawyers from all around the world. So it didn't come back that they are the ones paying for all this. And they never would tell it the truth about it for 5 years. But it came out in the court. The judge said, well, who is paying for your attorney fees?
Wow.
And the Mormon church was paying for all of their fees, paying their hotel rooms, paying for their food, everything. They did it all. They spent millions of tithing money that people put in. They took that money from the church to pay these criminals attorney fees.
Wow.
And that all came out. That's why all these lawyers kept saying this. And I told them, I said, no, I don't want your money. And I'll tell you why I joined the case in the very beginning. And I'll be totally honest with you. I knew that if I wasn't a part of the case, I would never be a part. I couldn't be a part of it until I testified. I loved my wife. I loved my children. I loved these families. I wanted to be there to support them. I went to every deposition that I could, which I was able to tell my lawyers, no, they're lying to you there. Ask them about this question, because I knew them, because I served with them. I knew them, and they hated it. But that's why I stayed there, because I knew I could be there then. My plan from the very beginning was to drop at the end, because I literally did not want one little penny of the church's money. I thought it was wrong. The reason is I knew that money was coming from hard, honest people working, paying tithing, and which they have so much money invested in things. They're a billion-dollar corporation, but I didn't want it. But I also wanted to let them, show them, you're wrong. You're accusing me that I'm lying and I made all this up just to get money. I didn't want it. That was my goal from the beginning. That's why I stayed in it as long as I did.
So at the end, with the threat of a mistrial, you had to settle.
Well, we talked as parents. I didn't, because I wasn't allowed to talk to anybody, but my wife did. They said, well, we have like 70% of the evidence is there. It's showed that they've lied, they've manipulated, they've tried to cover things up. It was all there. It was there complete. I thought, and we didn't want to have our children to have to come back and testify in court again, because we knew it would be another 2 or 3 year delay again.
And this has been 6 years now.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So they said, okay, well, we will agree to make an agreement settlement with the church. We'll talk now, because we didn't want to have to go through it. The parents, the children didn't, because my youngest child was 6 when he was abused. He's 13 now.
Wow.
It was time, because we knew there was enough there to prove, and we thought, okay, now justice can be done. These people that hid this predator, they can be held accountable by the law. So that's when agreements started being made.
We're out of time for this segment. We're going to come back to the third and final segment next week, where we're going to talk to Tom about the fallout then from the settlement, how his family's doing, what's all this has done to your marriage, but specifically to your wife, who was so faithful and devout with her feelings toward the LDS Church. I want to hear then what your thoughts are as to the deep, ultimate motive of the upper brass talking to Kirk McConkie. What is what are they doing? Are they just trying to keep the image pristine, as we are just really the true church on the face of the earth? And then I want to talk to you about the criminal, Chris Jensen. And I want to talk to you about your thoughts about him. And we'll wrap that up next week here on Heart of the Matter.
Okay.
Let's take a break. Great job.